Has there ever been a recommendation that a taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Sorry, what was that?
Same question. Has the IRS recommended that any taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Again, I'm unable to answer that.
What you just watched is the start of an answer a Treasury Secretary would not give for 2 days. The question was simple. Has any taxpayer in American history ever been granted permanent immunity from an audit? In this video, we show the record on 3 things. First, what this immunity is and where it came from. Second, the man who approved the deal was the president's personal attorney. Third, the objection that came from inside his own department. We won't hand down a verdict. We'll put the record in order.
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche issued an order late last night that terminated President Trump's $1.776 so-called anti-weaponization fund, which could have compensated January 6th insurrectionists, among other people. Blanche's order also clarifies that the president's settlement with the IRS for tax audit immunity for Trump and his family members only applies to claims open at the time of the settlement and doesn't protect the president or his family from future tax filings.
The deal has 2 parts. One is a fund of $1,776 million. The other is immunity for Trump and his family from IRS audits for any tax return filed before May 19, 2026. These 2 parts are often confused. They are separate. Later in this video, you'll see why that matters.
Donald Trump has awarded himself from the IRS. The New York Times, Jake, was reporting that it could save him $100 million on some tax liabilities.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett asked the same question in different forms before the House Ways and Means Committee. Watch how many times he asks it and what answer comes back each time.
Has there ever been a recommendation that a taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Sorry, what was that?
Same question. Has the IRS recommended that any taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Again, I'm unable to answer that.
You can answer it. You refuse to answer. Can you tell the American people, in the history of the Treasury Department, has there ever been a taxpayer who's been recommended to have immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Has there ever been a taxpayer who had his tax returns released, his
Thank
family,
you.
and every
So
employee?
I'll take that as a no.
Employees.
Let me ask you, sir, since you
like
say you're relying
to the president.
Thank you. I reserve
all his employees today.
Maintaining
I
my
would
time,
that.
and since you refuse to answer, let me ask you, since you say you're following the advice of the Attorney General, the former criminal defense attorney for Mr. Trump, as you know, the Attorney General cannot compromise a tax dispute unless it's referred to him from the IRS for prosecution or defense. Have you ever been involved in any way in a decision to refer a tax dispute to the Attorney General?
Again, I cannot comment on that.
You can't comment. Your argument here that you can't comment in this case makes as much sense as President Trump saying that he cannot. I understand you want to talk over me, but you're not answering the question, because you may have defined insanity by referring to Einstein, but your appearance here today and yesterday in the Senate defines deception, and that's what you're doing to the American people. Isn't it correct, sir, that the Financial Management Service within the Treasury Department must give approval before any payment can be made from the judgment fund?
Sir, we administer the payments.
Yes, sir. You give approval to it. And
no, sir. We administer them.
You make a sign-off on them being...
We administer them just like if you tell your bank to wire money.
Here is the technical point Doggett raised. The Financial Management Service inside Treasury must approve any payment from the judgment fund before it goes out. So Treasury administers the payment. Doggett asked about the Secretary's role in that approval chain. The answer stayed inside a banking analogy.
Did Brian...
does not say do not pay, you shouldn't pay your Visa bill.
Did Brian Morrissey, who had been only confirmed by the Senate a few months earlier as Treasury General Counsel, do a good job for you? Can you answer that just with a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, he did. And as you know, he abruptly resigned rather than be associated with the seedy Trump slush fund deal and didn't sign off on anything. Can you pledge to the committee? I'm asking you a question, sir, if you'd listen to it. Can you pledge to the committee that you will assure that no retaliation occurs against the career IRS employees who wrote the 25-page memo asking the Department of Justice to halt action on this outrageous audit immunity deal?
Sir, we follow the law.
Okay, well, will you follow the law and assuring the committee that you won't retaliate against those courageous career employees?
We always follow the law.
Here is the technical point Doggett raised. The Financial Management Service, inside Treasury, must approve any payment from the judgment fund before it goes out, so Treasury administers the payment. Doggett asked about the Secretary's role in that approval chain. The answer stayed inside a banking analogy. The same subject had come up in the Senate one day earlier. The next day, in the House, Congresswoman Linda Sánchez turned to the same secretary. Sánchez is an attorney, and she came with a document.
The fact is that the judge's ruling in the litigation that references that slush fund only addresses the anti-weaponization fund. It doesn't even address Trump's immunity from audit. So I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the judge's order in the Floyd versus Department of Justice case.
Without objection.
Furthermore, I know that since 1962, the Supreme Court has held that ongoing litigation does not prevent someone from testifying in a congressional hearing. So once again, I'm going to ask, why are you allowing President Trump and his family to have complete immunity from being audited?
Again, since you're a lawyer, you will understand that the U.S. Treasury and the IRS are represented by the Justice Department and the Acting Attorney General.
Yes, but I just mentioned a Supreme Court case that doesn't bar you from testifying.
The Secretary again said ongoing litigation. Sánchez asked for the case name. No clear name came back. She then entered the order in Floyd v. Department of Justice into the record and showed this. That order covers only the fund, not the audit immunity. According to MS Now, the Secretary directs these questions to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Blanche was previously Trump's personal criminal defense attorney. In the Senate, Congressman Lujan asked about the same connection.
What about the addendum to this agreement? Are you familiar with what the addendum is?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Are you familiar with this giveaway from the IRS that says President Trump and anyone that knows him or does business with him or part of a business, they get off scot-free? Are you aware of this?
Again, I refer you to Attorney General Blanche.
Are you Attorney General Blanche's client?
The IRS and Treasury are a client of the Department of Justice.
So is that a nice way of saying yes? You're a client. He's your lawyer.
He represents.
You're the secretary. Are you the Secretary of Treasury? Yes is the answer.
The Department of Justice.
Scott Bessent, let me ask you this question, sir. Are you the Secretary?
In my personal capacity, Todd Blanche is not my attorney.
Correct, sir.
Are
you, sir,
for the
Mr.
U.S.
Secretary,
Treasury?
Scott, let me ask it this way. Scott, are you the Secretary of Treasury for the United States government?
Yes.
Appreciate that. The Department of Justice represents the IRS and the Department of Treasury in this lawsuit, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware of this addendum? You're telling me DOJ gave the president this without you knowing about it?
Again, they settle on our
All right,
behalf.
well, that's not how the law works, sir. I'm not a lawyer, but you have a bunch of them behind you. You should see the faces they're making at me behind you. They're all scowling at me back over here.
Well, I think that's a different reason, sir.
After these hearings, the lawsuit reached a federal judge. We read from the ruling itself.
It says this action was never about a party seeking judicial resolution of a legal issue or a factual dispute. The nature of the suit itself and the conduct of the parties and counsel from its filing make plain that this was an attempt to use the court to provide some legitimacy to an agreement to confer immunity to people and entities affiliated with the president and to earmark billions of dollars from American taxpayers to redress grievances not defined in the law. So
there is no daylight between the two, because what they constantly argue in every context is that the executive branch is unitary, that it is one sole individual. So if you take them at their own word on this, Alicia, that means there's no daylight as between the two.
There's also, though, recommendations here for what should happen to these attorneys.
Yeah, so there's sanctions agreements. One of Trump's attorneys can't actually practice in the Southern District of Florida for the next year. And then there's also possible disciplinary referrals. So she is sending possible disciplinary action that gets sent to the state bars. She notably orders the clerk of this court to send her order to the state bars of both New York and D.C. Why does that matter? Todd Blanche, who has his confirmation hearing to be Attorney General on Wednesday, is barred in the state of New York. Stanley Woodward, who's the Associate Attorney General, barred in the state of D.C. Both of those bar organizations have active ethics complaints for both of those individuals right now.
Let's follow the numbers. Trump sued the government for $10 billion on the claim that his tax records were leaked. The suit closed in a settlement that included the $1,776 million fund and the audit immunity. According to the New York Times, that immunity could save Trump an estimated $100 million. 3 numbers, 1 chain: the lawsuit, the settlement, the immunity. At the start, we said we'd show 3 things: the immunity, the attorney, the objection from inside. You've now seen the record on all 3. We return to the most quoted moment of the hearing.
I'm curious to know who counts as Trump's family for the purposes of this immunity. Is it his children, his in-laws, his grandchildren, his second or third cousin, his great-great-grandchildren? Do you know the answer to that question, Mr. Secretary?
Again, I imagine you have the Justice Department phone number. I would suggest you call them.
I'm not the one that runs the Department of the Treasury or that oversees what is happening with this immunity has been granted.
I'm not the one either. We follow the instructions of our lawyers, and we obey the law,
I
Representative.
hope that you're proud of your performance today, Mr. Secretary, because
I hope you get some social media clips.
I think it's pretty safe to say that this is probably the most corrupt Treasury Department in our nation's history. And while you dance around questions to protect Trump, Americans are suffering in Trump's spiraling economy. Inflation is now rising faster than average hourly wages. Gas prices are at an all-time high with the war in Iran. The cost of groceries has risen 3.2% over the past years, and prices on most goods have gone up because of Trump's tariffs. So I don't see how you could call that anything other than a failure of the most corrupt Treasury Department in history.
Your time has expired, Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. My time has expired.
Secretary, I would love for you to respond to the accusations at your department, because I think you were due the opportunity for that.
The Congresswoman is slanderous. She has nothing but the unsubstantiated opinions, and I will not stand for that. There is nothing corrupt. We move at the highest levels, and just because she cannot get the answer she wants, if she would like to give me facts, she seems long on facts, short on facts, long on hot air, and I will not stand for that. Yeah, that's great.
Mr. Arrington is recognized.
Disgrace to make a remark like that.
Apparently, my colleagues had a sudden interest in.
Sánchez asked who the immunity covers: his children, his grandchildren, distant relatives. No direct answer was entered into the record.
But when I spoke with John Cornyn last week, he was really focused on the IRS immunity piece of it, in large part because he felt like it was the DOJ making a deal with someone who happens to be the president of the United States in a way that they would not make that same deal of future immunity in perpetuity for you and your family around the IRS and future audits. He felt that that was unfair. And I think now we're at the point of questioning, does this deal that is made right now actually serve as a deal that moves this nomination over the finish line? We haven't heard from Tillis. I saw a colleague of mine in the Hill press corps with a statement from a Cornyn spokesperson saying that they've reached an agreement and that they're going to be waiting to see what it is. Obviously, we got it late last night. So does this clear the runway now?
I mean, Allie, in theory, it should. I would have to believe that Blanche would not put out anything publicly like this if they didn't already have an agreement that they were going to move forward and actually confirm him. But there are still a number of outstanding questions here. If we go back just briefly to the actual part of the fund deal itself, that rescission, that's something that judges have been asking them to do since June, and they have not done it.
Here's what happened after these hearings. Acting Attorney General Blanche formally canceled the $1,776 million fund and stated the immunity applies only to the past. In the same period, a federal judge referred the case to the New York and Washington Bar Associations for disciplinary review. 2 things to watch. 1, whether the fund returns. The ruling does not bar it permanently. 2, Blanche's confirmation process. If you want to keep tracking where your tax dollars go and who accounts for them when asked, let's keep the record together.